Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Unfucking Your CX. I am your host, Zack Hamilton, and I am so excited. Let me tell you how I stumbled across the guest today. I've been talking to many folks in Europe, and they said, you've got to have Babs on. Babs leads an incredible workshop. She plays this incredible game that really kind of shifts the mind of CX leaders. And so I said, I got to figure out who Babs is and I got to bring her on. And I found her. So I found Babs. Babs, welcome to the show. Welcome
Thank
to
you
us.
very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's so exciting. You know, I've been working to get this scheduled a couple times, and I'm so glad we finally have been able to one, get you in the hot seat, but two, really, I'm ready to learn from you today. So before we do that, I like to start every podcast with, hey, set the scene, because a lot of times, Babs, these conversations don't come up, just like in the regular office talk. So where would this one come up for you? Are we at your favorite restaurant, pub? Are we taking a walk, sitting along a river? Like, where's it happen for you?
Where we are is something I miss absolutely because once a week, well, for one day, I am in a classroom. So we are today in a classroom. I follow art classes for 2 years now, one day a week on Mondays. So on Mondays I do not facilitate workshops, but I am in art class and I follow. What I do is graphic design, and because it's summer now, we have a 3 months break. So I miss it a bit because it really, I love to be creative with my hands, to get out of my head, to learn new things. Work with colors, make mistakes, make failures. Sometimes it's really nothing, but it really helps me also in my work. So not only doing and learning graphic art techniques, you see a couple of them here. This one I made, the others are pictures. I also I'm a photographer. I've done all kind of things, but it's really helpful in my work too, because in the game, which I will explain later, I use lots of creative techniques to get people out of their heads and to do things with their hands, because I think that in my work as a CX activator and creative changemaker, creativity, experimenting, and also a bit slowing down are essential to change, to transform into customer cultures. And with slowing down, I do not mean in time, but in using techniques. So slowing down as a technique to look from different problems from different perspectives, not only just one. So, okay, this is a problem, we solve it this way, because your brains then think, okay, it's solved. And people are doing nothing, because that's something, and you probably know too, that I hear lots of customers from me talk about, people understand it, but they do not do anything. They do not change their behavior. And that's because your brain thinks when you solve something, okay, it's solved. But then it starts actually. And that's what I'm still learning about it. I'm reading books about it. And I think, and once I learned it a couple of months ago, that this really was something in your brain. I didn't know. I use it lots of time in my workshops and also in the game. But now I'm more deep diving into it and to use it more often in my workshops, to learn more
Oh,
about that.
that's amazing. One, I love that we are back in the classroom. I think it's one where, look, I was an okay student. I really didn't like school. I love the process of learning. I didn't like school, but I love the process of learning. And I think we're at this time in our discipline, in the CX discipline, where there are significant skill set capability and competency gaps in how we move our discipline forward. And I think these traditional kind of classrooms, they're not cutting it.
No.
These traditional certifications aren't cutting it. I mean, and so I love this classroom setting, and I love just this psychological safety that you're able to create inside of your classroom for this type of conversation to take place. And I love your art, by the way. I can see your art. For those of you who are watching maybe on YouTube or Spotify, you could definitely see Babs' art.
Not everything is from me. I also like to buy art, but there are some things made by me, behind me.
Yeah, you remind me so much. So I have a daughter who's 13, and she is such a creative. I mean, she's an incredible athlete, um, and she does that more for the social side.
Hmm.
She's such a creative, and if you walk into her bedroom, it's like kind of like yours, but one whole wall is just drawings and paintings
Wow.
that she does. You know, she's into making jewelry and she does candles and I wish I could be that creative. So
She
um,
didn't learn it from you then?
she did not get it from me, that's for sure. But I love it. She's
Yeah.
already planning on studying art in university. But Babs, I'd love to get into it. You have seen it all. You are highly regarded. What is one topic in customer experience, or it could be employee experience right now,
Hmm.
that is just making you cringe the most, that you came to the hot seat to unfuck?
I think that in CX and also in EX, we use what really makes me cringe is how little we use creativity and play in our work on the work floor. Which it's not something you do at home. And everyone is creative in their own way, and you can also learn to be more creative. And it's not only about art. I like to do art, to make art in all kinds of ways. But it's also creative thinking. When what I just said is that companies want their people to change their mindset, their behavior, to be more customer centric, to behave more customer centric, and people are thinking of all kinds of customer promises and wished behaviors. But what we do is give that kind of stuff on presentations and KPIs or whatever kind of policies. Then people stay in their heads. And when you want to change them into new behavior or different behavior or more be more aware of what they do, because luckily lots of things we do, the most things we do are on the automatic pilot. But we have to see it again, what we are doing, because when you are more aware of what you do for customers or your colleagues, then you can learn from it and you can also teach others to do so. And that's why I believe play and creativity and slowing down, my new feature, aren't just soft things, but it's really essential to spark new thinking and drive real action. I think that's it.
I love this. I love this whole part of bringing just art and creativity into, customer experience, especially when you think about one of our competencies that we have to have is redesigning the experience, right? So
Yeah.
when frictions pop up, how do we redesign the experience? And I think too often, I'm just thinking back to my own career when I was at Aaron's, and I feel like too often I got stuck in the box, right? In that
Mm-hmm.
corporate box of
Yeah.
here's the box, here's what we need you to fit into. And instead of being creative and really getting outside the box or just burning the box down, right? And getting outside of it. And so I'm curious, like before we get into your player tips, why do you think so many CXers, why do you think so many of us fail to bring that fun and creativity into the workspace?
I think that for one, people think it's something to do at home, to play card games. Because when I give demos of the game or I explain, I always ask as a starter, do you love playing games? Yes. Do you often play? What kind of games do you play at home? Everyone does. But why don't you do that at your work anymore? And you don't have to play that games in the same way, although some games you can use in your work environment. And I think there is a misunderstanding of what creativity is. Because I often say, I let people draw, for example, and then people are always, I cannot draw. Yes, but you could draw before you could write. So you can make a circle, a bar, or whatever, and people can draw. They show that. But sometimes when people are very anxious about it, I always say, okay, but you don't have to make art. It's just to get a better understanding of what we are talking about, who your customers are, or what your customer experience is, or whatever. But when you draw it, you get, it helps to set different connections in your brain, and the story is better afterwards. And I think people are a little bit anxious about that drawing or creativity is just the artist. That's a word I cannot pronounce right in English. Artistic creativity.
Yeah.
But when you are cooking a recipe, do you follow every step exactly as is written down? Or do you think, I don't like this spice, I use another one? That's creativity too. But people forget it.
Yeah, it's one. I love how you're bringing this topic to the table around, being creative and being artistic is it's not just about drawing a picture or painting a picture. I used to think that's what, being creative and artistic was all about. And then I really started to realize I'm a creative at heart. I'm creating new experiences. I'm redesigning new experiences. And I think the other piece, like my family, we try to sit down every Friday evening and have family game night, to your point
Yeah.
of, leave classwork, leave schoolwork, leave my work, leave everything to the side, and let's use that to connect. And what I've noticed with our kids is as we pick up new games or they start to suggest new games, and you can start to see their strategic minds on how they're going to try and either partner with someone if it's a partner-led game or how they're going to win the game because my family is very competitive. And so I love how you think about that. It reminds me of, have you seen the little girl kind of in the magazine where she has all these different color Lego pieces? And so it kind of first starts with like all these individual Lego pieces, and then ultimately she's like built her own castle. And I've seen it around many times around CX, but ultimately that's what we do as CXers, right? We take all of these pieces of data that we have coming in, we redesign and recreate new experiences that are outside the instruction manual, right? Outside that box, like you just mentioned, and we build our own little castle. And so, Babs, I'd love for us to start with the player tips. When you think about getting more creative at work, playing more games, feeling that creative side of CX, what's the first player tip to do it?
It's all about playing in your work. And Nienke Bloem and I created the CX game 9 years ago. And she asked me to think along with her to create a workshop. We didn't know what, but we both loved games. And back then I have a background in market research, and there we used games from design agencies, and we created one about NPS. And yeah, then I knew playing is where people simply learn better when they play, when they are allowed to do it themselves, than when someone explains that to them. And based a little bit on the fun we have with playing, the competition, and also the things you said, what you see with your kids. You learn strategic things. And we thought, okay, and when creating and thinking and talking about it, we designed the customer experience game. And and back then, playing in the office wasn't that common. Nowadays, in the Netherlands, it is. We have lots of people who use Lego Serious Play, other kinds of games. I don't know how it's in the US.
I think it's been more challenging, right? As it's been, have that work from home culture,
Yeah.
a lot of companies are starting to bring you, return to office. And I
This is
think,
the reason to get people out of their homes and bring them
yeah,
to the office.
absolutely. And I think too often, right? I don't know. I think maybe playing, like getting creative and playing creative games might be linked more to quote unquote culture. And so that might only happen occasionally when we want to drive more employee engagement, improve our culture. Like that's what I see over here in the US, which is like it's only leveraged as more of an engagement type driver in EX versus how do we solve and get creative around fundamental business problems and how do we
Yeah.
redesign them?
Yeah. And what we start from the beginning, because in the Netherlands there was another game, but it was a simulation. It was also a board game, but it was a simulation. And what we thought, we really want to drive them into action, and we want to grow their awareness around customer thinking. That was our goal from the start. So that's why I can show the small one. This is a game board, and this is for everyone the same. But we have 3 main topics, and behind those topics there are tailored, customized questions and assignments. So the topics are voice of the customer, the second one is brand delivery in the customer journey, and the third one is employee ambassadorship. And behind that's common for everyone, but based on the goal, on the target group, on the customers, on whether they are B2B, B2C or government or whatever, and their situation, we tailor those assignments. And of course we have a whole database with all kinds of assignments, so we pick out of them, but we also think of new ones. And when I look back at 9 years ago and nowadays, I use much more creativity in the assignments. So I also, in the beginning we only let them draw, but now we use Lego, Play-Doh, photos, And it could be from their phone, but it could be also, I have sets with inspirational cards which we use to let them think in a different way, and and what we see is that people have fun, they laugh constantly, they share real stories, and that was something we didn't see in the beginning, or it wasn't in our mind because we were focused on playing a game about customer experience, but it creates a real connection between people. So it's really a team building also.
Yeah, I love that. I think, and that's one of the keys too, I think, to customer experience is that cross-functional team building, right? Because as CXers, we don't own the KPIs, we don't own the budgets, we don't own the resources that is needed to get the work done. So I love how it's also that cross-functional collaboration. Babs, what's the second player tip?
The second one, I tipped it a little bit, slowing down as a technique. And I shall explain what I mean with it, because, for example, when what I said is what your brain is constantly, I cannot come up with the right word now, but I will explain with an example. Because when you're brainstorming, you have a problem, you're going to brainstorm, you get some ideas, and your brain is thinking, okay, we've solved the problem. But what you have to do is that you think, okay, this is one perspective. Now we're going to think of another perspective. For example, another team or another colleague. How is he looking at this problem? How does he reflect on it? That's one. And the second is, for example, how could a company like Starbucks or IKEA or Disney help us with this problem? How should they solve the issue? And then you can also think of, okay, this is a more kind of a normal solution, and you can think of out of the box or no limit. I sometimes call them no limit. So there is budget, there are people, there is time, everything. So huge. Yeah. And of course that solution couldn't be the one you pick, but you can learn from it and pick the real impactful things out of it, and then you have a better solution. And when you do this from all those kind of perspectives, and it could also be the nature from ants or something or whatever, and then your brain is more activated. So in one advantage of it is that you will have better solutions with more impact. And the second one is that people are going to do something with it. So not only thinking, okay, this is the solution and go on with their usual stuff, but then they are more aware of it. And because they have looked from it from different perspectives, they think, okay, I have to do something with it. And they really want to do something with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's so important, right? Because too often, I mean, I've been in so many customer journey mapping sessions, for example, where maybe those workshops take a day, 2 days, or 3 days, and it's incredible. The conversations, the connection, everything happens, but then no one owns, well, what happens coming out of here?
Yeah, but the next day they are going to do things so they were doing before.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you brought up about the speed. So ironically, I didn't know what our conversation was going to be about today, but on LinkedIn I posted today, and it's part of the book that I've been authoring, but it's forward motion without reflection isn't progress. It's just speed.
Yeah.
And too often we're just moving so fast.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to check things off the list.
Steps backward.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Babs, I love that player tip. What's the third player tip? Bring it home here.
Use your hands, not just your head, because in the end you need it. But if you want people to think differently, let them do differently. So that's why I bring all those kind of creativity in my workshops. And that's, for example, one of our favorites, and Nienke posted it on LinkedIn last week also, and that's something also what lots of companies didn't describe, is what is the customer experience you want to give to your customers. And that's a real important topic to talk about, because that's one of the things too, what we also see when we use this game or other workshops, that people do not talk about this with each other. And when we bring them together in the game, they sometimes first talk about, okay, what kind of customer experience do we want our customers to experience? And we let them draw. So not just talk in words, we let them draw it in a cake. So draw a cake which reflects on your customer experience. And the cake is the metaphor for it, because a cake has much layers and sparkles on it and whatever. And sometimes people are very honest. They draw a plain cake because there is no experience. And others are wedding. We see wedding cakes and whatever. And lots of times they reflect on it from the inside out perspective. So we also have a discussion about that you have to ask your customers to bring it outside in. But it really helps them to set the scene and to give wordings to something they've never talked about it. So, and you can also use pictures or Lego or Play-Doh. Sometimes I let them use Play-Doh to create their customers.
Yeah.
Or Lego is very helpful for that. And it's when they are out of their heads, they give, and they are more on the. It's not only functional the words they use, but also on an emotional level. So and they are more connected to the words they use, and it's more emotional than only functional. So the wordings they use are different.
It's incredible. I love just this way that you're bringing in not just the creative side of it, but really understanding what is the problem that we're trying to solve. And do we really even know the problem we're trying to solve? Too many times we're trying to solve for the metric versus, to your point, looking at the different layers of the cake, talking the inside out, outside in, really getting that perspective. And so I love how you kind of really get the team centered on, are you solving for the right thing?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we do, is because we work with, that's why we have in the game a maximum of 16 to 20 people divided into 4 teams. And each team is, I think one team throws the dice and decides on the question or the assignment, and then every team is working on the same assignment. And when time's up, they're going to share with it, and then we have a reflection and a discussion about it. So they learn from the smaller groups, but also from us together and from a facilitator. And that's why it also is a facilitated game and not just a box which you can buy in the shop or something.
Yeah.
Because we, as a facilitator, also bring our expertise and learnings from all other companies. And I do this now for 9 years. I play lots of games and I still love it because every discussion, every setting is different. And I love the creativity, the things, the connection people. And sometimes I see the light bulbs above their heads and people think, okay, I have impact on customers too.
Yeah.
Or I can do that too. And just because they are talking about in 2 to 3 hours with each other about a topic which they know is very important, but they never talk about together.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just want to jump into a workshop right now, but Babs, this has been...
In the autumn, I have a couple of times a year, so I give online demos.
Oh, yeah.
In Dutch, but also in English.
Yeah.
So I'm going to send you an invite when I have one.
We're facing our organizations today. So, Babs, thank you so much for coming to the hot seat. I know we could go a lot deeper in this, but for any of our listeners, our audience that's listening, and they want to get in touch with you to learn more about this creativity and fun or a workshop, where can they find you?
I think LinkedIn is the best way. You can see my name here because in English it's not that easy. My surname, I think. But LinkedIn is the best, and you can connect with me and the customer experience game. But we also have an employee experience game. Both have company pages on LinkedIn. And since May, I have a monthly newsletter called the CX Play Boost, and there I also use lots of creativity to bring people in different settings. On LinkedIn it's in Dutch, but there is always a link to the website in English. So
yeah, perfect.
For everyone.
Perfect. So for our listeners, we typically drop the newsletter for the episode. So Babs will be connected. I'll make sure that I have her websites linked in there as well as her LinkedIn newsletter. Babs, thanks again so much. Don't be a stranger. Come back. And looking forward to hosting you again.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I really love to speak to you and to share my view on this really important topic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.